Welcome to Groundbreakers Podcast. I am your host, Nick Stilo, and my co-host, Joe Villar.
Welcome, everyone.
And Groundbreakers is a podcast all about real estate development and the chronicles of a real estate developer.
Very good. And my job is to question you about everything. And one of them that we need to discuss, of course, it's always in the top 3 whenever you Google search this, interest rates. Interest rates. Joe, take it away. What is the situation with interest rates and what we do for a living?
Well, interest rates is the biggest factor, one of the biggest factors in our world, where basically everyone needs a mortgage to buy a home. No one really, at least I don't, can afford to buy a home without a mortgage. And the interest rate is the biggest component of that. And right now we are living through a high interest rate environment, which is making it difficult for the average person to purchase a home.
I think it's not even just buying a home. It's even constructing that home as a developer. We closely monitor the interest rates and what it's going to cost us to build that, our cost of borrowing.
Absolutely. It factors into the cost of the overall home, and so it's twofold. Not only does it raise the cost of homes, but it also makes it difficult for the average homeowner to obtain a mortgage because it comes down to their monthly payments.
Hold on, though. Sometimes it's factored into the sale price and sometimes it isn't, because if we sell a product or a unit before we've gone out for construction financing, then we don't know what that interest rate is going to be. There could be a spike in that interest rate, and there could be spikes several times during construction, and all of that factors into the bottom line. Absolutely.
But when you're doing a forecast, you're predicting into the future. So you can only use current information today and base that on what you project to be in the future. But again, it's a guess at that point.
And for all of you guys out there that don't know, we as developers, we borrow money to build our buildings based on variable rates. So we don't lock in those rates at the beginning of construction. Those are variable. So if the rate goes up in the middle of construction, well, then it costs that much more to build.
Just check this on Reddit, and you're being called out on that because people are saying that the interest rates they get are different from the interest rates you get. They're saying that you guys get a better deal.
BS. How many buildings have they built?
They're saying that you're getting an incentive. Is that true?
From who?
From the Bank of Canada.
The Bank of Canada doesn't look at a $100 million mortgage any different than they look at a $1 million mortgage. Interest rate is an interest rate.
So does that mean that you're in that same
pool
of interest rate variable discussions, and when you borrow, you're borrowing essentially what, John Hancock is going to be borrowing?
Absolutely. I'd love to challenge and sit in a room with the persons that are people that are calling out developers for getting incentives.
There are many people that say that you have specific incentives and programs in place to help you through this interest rate.
I call these people keyboard warriors. They hide behind their keyboard, but they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
So there's no truth to that?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So once you get approved, are there the same facets that they go through looking at your credentials opposed to, let's say, me for when I want to buy $1 million home?
There's more. We have covenants that we need to be able to cover that entire construction.
Do you agree, Joe?
Absolutely, I agree.
Just imagine, as a financial institution, if you're about to lend $100 million, which is very, very easy in the development industry to have a $100 million project, you're going to want to know absolutely everything about the borrower, right down to the color of their underwear. Okay, maybe not the color of their underwear, but close enough.
Okay, so then let me say this, Joe. Jump on this one. Ready? Can you explain the difference between fixed and variable interest rates for construction financing?
So typically there isn't fixed rate interest rates in construction financing. It's variable. And the banks do that because they don't want to be put in a position where if interest rates go up, now there's a shortfall on their end and they're not collecting the rates that they need to match their borrowing requirements. So typically all construction financing is variable rate financing. So basically if the Bank of Canada goes up, our rate goes up. If the Bank of Canada rate goes down, our rate goes down.
And actually, let's just add to that. And if I can echo what you're saying, if that rate goes up and the cost of borrowing goes up for that project, typically banks will require us, the developer, to put that in as cash.
Absolutely.
So to put easy numbers here, high level numbers, if the interest rate goes up in the middle of construction and that adds $300,000 to the cost of that project, they require us to put that $300,000 in right away.
That's right.
Not at the end.
That's called an equity injection.
That's right. So oftentimes in a construction cycle, if the financing rate goes up, there'll be a cash call from the bank, and they'll require the developer to put that cash in. So let me actually just expand on this a little bit further. The banks require the developer's money to be spent first. What does that mean? That means that if next month our draw amount, meaning the amount that we're requesting from the bank to give us to pay our trades for last month's work, is $2 million, but now the cost of lending has gone up, and the delta is $300,000 on the project, they will effectively turn the financing tap off and require us to put that $300,000 in before they turn the tap back on. So what does that mean? That means that out of that $2 million that you're asking, they're going to say, well, the cost of the construction just went up $300,000. Put in your $300,000 first, then we'll advance you $1.7 million. And if you don't have it, you don't continue. And if you don't continue, the trades walk off the site.
So you're on a variable rate loan.
Yes.
Okay. They're going to start announcing now if it's going down a quarter point. You're affected by that.
Yes.
Yes.
But up until now, it's been the other way around.
Positively, we are affected by that, right? But we are negatively affected when it goes the opposite rate too. So you have to look at both sides of the coin here.
And you can't raise or decrease the home prices or the condo prices, right?
No. Well, you can't raise them because you've sold them already. So, as I shared in a previous episode, some developers in the past, not One Urban, but some developers have gone back to their purchasers before closing and asked for additional funds.
I don't think anyone would say yes to that. You know what I mean?
It depends.
So if they say no, do they lose the money? Well, what happens?
They would have to break their deal. So let me put myself in the perspective of the buyer. If I bought a condo 4 years ago, 5 years ago, pre-construction, based off a plan, a piece of paper, nothing was on site yet, and I paid that condo $400,000. Now you fast forward 4 or 5 years later, and that condo is now valued in the market at $650,000. If the developer comes up to me and asks me for another $100,000 in order to close on this, I'm still up. Because if I have to back out of that deal and now go buy another condo, the market says that condo is worth $650,000 today, not $400,000 that I paid. So even if I have to put in another $100,000, I'm still up. Now, I'm not saying that that's right from the developer's perspective, and One Urban has not done that, and nor would we ever do that. But if I was faced with that challenge as a purchaser, if I could afford to put that other $100,000 in, I would, because I'm still up $150,000 from a market value perspective.
So now I also see, now we have penalties and such. Are there penalties or fees associated with early repayment of construction loans, and how does this affect your overall interest paid?
Early repayment, that never happens.
Yeah.
Construction loan.
Does it happen?
That never happens. If anything, construction timelines get extended.
We end up paying more.
They never
interest.
go the other way around, ever.
So, is there a penalty though for repaying early?
No,
for a construction loan.
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Well, we haven't done it though yet.
I don't think anyone ever has, to be honest with you. Not that I'm aware of.
If anything, you might be right on time, but I don't know anybody that's ever been early on the delivery of their units.
Yeah, typically there's always delays in construction.
And what about the adverse effect about if you're late? Are you paying
the interest rate keeps going,
but same as the consumer? Or do you have any benefits?
There's no benefits. You're paying that same interest rate that is tacked onto your mortgage, and you're paying it monthly until you close.
Okay, and then
let me actually put this into perspective here. We deliver a unit on occupancy. Let's just use a calendar year for an example. We deliver it in January. Once we deliver that unit, we then get our legal team and our survey team to start preparing the building mylars and the final blueprints, which will then be signed off by the surveyor to be registered at the city as the as-built for this particular project. That on its own could take 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and then you register it. Once it's registered, then you schedule a closing. That could take another 2 or 3 months, or depending however long it takes to municipalities to get you your registration documents back. So from the time we occupy to the time we actually close, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. And oftentimes it's out of our control. We're dealing with outside forces like our surveyors, our lawyers, the city's lawyers, and everybody to do their job on a timely manner to get those documents all in the city and registered. And then we can go back to our purchasers and say, we're going to close in 2 months. Now, I will say that during that time, there is something called a interim occupancy fee that purchasers will pay that help the expenses of the developer, but they don't cover all of it. They're just helping the expenses. And those are just based on the number of square footage that they've purchased in their unit and the condo fee value that's associated to that square foot. So if it's, for argument's sake, $1 per square foot or 75 cents per square foot, and they've got 600 square feet, they would pay $600 a month until the date of closing. And then at closing, they're no longer paying it to the developer. They're paying it to the condo corporation, which is out of our control.
Understandable. Joe, this is the final question for you. How does the builder's credit history and financial standing influence the offered interest rate?
Well, it doesn't affect the offered interest rate. What it does affect is the ability to borrow again. So if you've got a good track record, you've completed a previous projects successfully and within the scheduled timing, then lenders will typically want to lend to you again. So it doesn't really affect the interest rate per se. It does affect whether they're willing to provide you financing in the future.
What he's trying to say is that the strength of a developer is their ability to borrow.
To be able to borrow
money and continue borrowing money
with a really good credit score.
That's right.
Meaning that you're not late, you're always on time,
You're always repaying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, the bank doesn't care whether you repay and make money. They just want to get repaid. So you can lose money on that's right. You can lose money on a project, but the bank wants their 100% of their money back. That's what the covenant.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. That's what the covenants are for. And if there's a shortfall, you're coming up with it.
And now, final question is if you consecutively have a great track record with the bank, will your ability to borrow more in the future increase?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But it's like anybody. If
that's what I mean. But I don't know if builders are the same.
If you've got a good credit score and you're repaying your credit cards every month and you're paying your phone bill every month and your utility bills and your mortgage, ultimately, that affects your credit score. And the higher your credit, the more ability you have to borrow and the more money you can borrow.
I guess to finalize this episode, what I got to ask is if people have questions and need to know further about how interest rates work, where could they reach you guys?
Well, if they want to ask about interest rates, they can call their bank. But if they want to reach us as a developer, they can reach us at oneurban.ca across all our social platforms, info@oneurban.ca, and email 416-741-4777 on the old telephone. And we are out.
Bye for now.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh. Groundbreakers out, where dreams get real and bricks get laid. Until the next plot twist, happy building.